The wind howled through the pines like the voices of 1,000 ghosts when Jeremiah Cole found the sign nailed to the oldest oak in the valley. The letters carved with a knife bled golden sap under the dying light of dawn. No one will pay for this trash. His eyes, hardened by 20 years of violence and solitude, followed the carved arrow pointing towards a pristine snowdrift, where something that looked like a bundle of rags lay motionless. Cole dismounted. His black horse, spurs jingling against the frozen silence of the February morning. His boots crunched on the packed snow as he approached the bundle, his right hand resting instinctively on the butt of his Colt revolver. He had seen too much evil in this world to approach anything abandoned by men in the wilderness unprepared. When he pulled back the first layer of snow, his breath froze in the air. An Apache girl, no older than 18, lay curled up like a wounded animal, her long black hair spread like ink on the white canvas. Her bronzed skin had turned bluish from the cold, but she still breathed in shallow gasps, creating small clouds of vapor. "My God," Cole muttered, words he hadn't uttered, in years escaping his cracked lips. The girl wore only a torn cotton dress, completely inadequate for the harsh Montana winter. Someone had left her here to die, marking her with that cruel sign, as if she were livestock or worthless. Cole looked around, his trained eyes reading. The tracks in the snow like pages of a violent book. 3 horses, 2 men on foot, traces of a brief but intense struggle. Drops of blood, already crystallized, marked a trail that disappeared eastward, where the mountains rose like broken teeth against the leaden sky. Without a second thought, Cole removed his buffalo hide coat and wrapped the young woman in it. The contact with her icy skin shot through him like an electric shock, reminding him that it had been months since he had touched another human being. He lifted her into his arms, surprised by how light she was, as if suffering had consumed her. "Very substance. Easy, girl," he whispered as he carried her towards his horse. "I don't know who did this to you, but no one deserves to die like an animal in the snow." His words sounded strange in his own ears. He had gone so long without speaking kindly that he had almost forgotten how. Cole's horse, a black stallion named Shadow, snorted nervously when his master approached with the burden. Horses always knew when something was wrong, when death lurked too close. Cole settled the girl in front of him on the saddle, holding her steady with one arm, while guiding the reins with the other. As they rode towards his cabin, 5 miles down the valley, Cole couldn't get the words of the sign out of his mind. No one will pay for this trash. What kind of men wrote something like that? What kind of society allowed a human life to be reduced to so little? He had been many things in his life. Soldier, bounty hunter, hired gun, but he had never treated another human being as refuse. The young woman stirred weakly in his arms, muttering words in Apache that he didn't understand. Cole tightened his protective embrace, feeling something he hadn't experienced in years. The weight of responsibility for another life. For the first time in decades, Jeremiah Cole wasn't riding alone into the horizon. And that simple reality would change everything he thought he knew about himself. You won't believe what happens next. The crackle of the fire was the first thing. Na registered as she slowly emerged from the icy depths of unconsciousness. Her eyelids felt like stones when she opened them, in the golden light of the dancing. Flames made her squint. An unfamiliar scent filled the air. Bitter coffee, tobacco, and something else. Something that smelled like safety. "It's about time," a gruff voice muttered from somewhere in the room. Anna turned her head with difficulty and saw a tall, bearded man sitting on a wooden chair, meticulously cleaning a silver revolver. His eyes, the color of steel under a storm, watched her with a mixture of caution and something that might have been compassion. Anna tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness forced her back onto what she now recognized as a real bed, with clean sheets and a wool blanket that smelled of wild mint. The contrast with her last memories, the snow, the cold, the despair was so abrupt that for a moment she thought she was dreaming. "Where?" she began to ask, but her voice came out as a hoarse croak. The man stood up and brought her a steaming tin cup. The liquid was warm, salty broth, and when she tasted it, she felt life returning drop by drop to her numb body. "You're safe," he said simply, returning to his chair. "I found you in the snow 3 days ago. Didn't think you'd wake up." His words were direct, unadorned, but Anna detected something deeper in his tone, genuine concern that surprised her coming from a stranger. Anna studied his face as she drank. It was a man who had lived much, with deep wrinkles around his eyes and a scar that ran across his left cheek from temple to the corner of his mouth. But his hands, though calloused and marked by hard work, had been gentle when he gave her the cup. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why did you help me?" The question came from the deepest part of her wounded soul. In recent weeks, she had learned that kindness was a luxury few could afford, especially towards a solitary and vulnerable Apache. Cole stopped cleaning his weapon and looked her directly in the eyes. "Because it was the right thing to do," he replied with a simplicity that disarmed her. "And because no one, absolutely no one, deserves to die abandoned in the snow like an animal." His words carried the weight of an unwavering conviction. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Anna could feel that. This man, whose name she still didn't know, had made a conscious decision to protect her. It was something she could perceive in the way he had arranged the cabin, his weapon within reach, but put away. The door secured but not barricaded. His posture alert but not threatening. "My name is Anna," she finally said, using the Apache version of her name instead of the one given to her at the mission. It meant eternal flower, something her grandmother had taught her before the world turned so cruel. "And yours?" "White man who saves Apaches in the snow? What is it?" "Jeremiah Cole," he replied, holstering the clean revolver. "Though most just know me as Cole." He stood up and added another log to the fire. The flame sprang to life, casting dancing shadows on the cabin's wooden walls. "And I'm not exactly one for saving people. This is an unusual situation for me." Anna watched him move around the room with the economical grace of a predator, every movement calculated and efficient. It was clear he was used to living alone, every object in its precise place, every routine perfected by years of practice. But something in his way of avoiding her gaze told her that her presence had altered him more than he was willing to admit. "How long have you been living here alone?" she asked, drinking more broth and feeling the warmth spread through her chest. The cabin was Spartan but comfortable. A bed, a table, 2 chairs, shelves surprisingly filled with well-kept books, and rifles arranged with military precision on a special rack. Cole sat down heavily, as if the weight of the question were physical. 5 years, maybe 6. You lose track of time when every day is the same as the last. He took a bottle of whiskey from a shelf and poured himself a drink, but didn't immediately drink it. "And you? How did you end up in my valley with that damn sign nailed over your head?" Anna's face darkened, and she looked away towards the fire. Memories of the past weeks crowded her mind like vultures. The Catholic mission where she had lived for the past 2 years. Father Morrison, who had tried to civilize her. The 3 men who had arrived one night looking for fun with. The Indian girls. "I ran from the St. Augustine mission," she began, her voice barely audible. "Father Morrison. He said it was for my own good, that he was saving me from the wild life. But when those men came, and he did nothing to protect us?" Her voice broke slightly, but she recomposed herself with a strength that impressed. "Cole, the 3 men chased me for days. They caught me a week ago near the river." Anna unconsciously touched the rope marks on her wrists that Cole had noticed but not asked about. "They said a dirty Indian wasn't worth the trouble. That no one would pay a ransom for my kind. So they nailed that sign and left me to die." Cole clenched the whiskey glass until his knuckles turned white. He had seen cruelty before. He had participated in it during the war. But something about this young woman's quiet dignity as she recounted her torture filled him with a fury he hadn't felt in years. "Would you recognize those men if you saw them again?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Anna looked at him and saw something in his eyes that made her shiver. It wasn't just compassion that had awakened in this solitary gunfighter. It was something far more primal and lethal. "Yes," she replied without hesitation. The leader had a horseshoe-shaped scar on the back of his left hand, and one of them wore a necklace made of bare teeth. The third had the coldest eyes I've ever seen, like green ice." Cole finally drank his whiskey in one gulp and set the glass on the table with a sharp thud. "Marcus Henley, Tom Befoot, and Jacob Winters," he said with the certainty of one who intimately knows his enemies. They've been terrorizing this territory for 2 years, so the law's been after them, but they're slippery as snakes. You know them? Anna sat up slightly, a mixture of hope and fear in her voice. Cole nodded slowly, his face hardening like granite under the rain. Our paths have crossed before. I let them go last time because it wasn't my business. He stood up and walked to the window, watching the snow begin to fall again. But now it is my business. The next few days unfolded in a strange but comfortable routine that neither had experienced before. Cole, accustomed to absolute solitude, found himself surprisingly adapting well to Anna's presence. She cooked dishes he had never tasted, combining the cabin's provisions with herbs she knew from her childhood, filling the space with aromas that made the place feel more like a home than a refuge. Anna, for her part, discovered that Cole was vastly different from what she had expected of a Western gunfighter. In the evenings, after completing the day's chores, he read books of philosophy and poetry, silently moving his lips as he followed the lines with his finger. When she asked him about it, he blushed slightly and admitted he had been a schoolteacher before the war. The Civil War changed many things, he explained one night as they shared a stewed rabbit dinner. After what I saw, what I did, I couldn't go back to standing in front of a room full of innocent children. Is some things stain your soul in such a way that there's no way to clean them? Anna observed the sadness that settled in his eyes like dust on a forgotten road. My grandmother used to say that all souls can heal, she said softly, but only if the person is willing to let the light back in. Her words carried the wisdom of generations of women who had seen too much suffering. Cole looked at her with an intensity that made her feel as if he could see right through her. And your soul, Anna? Do you think it can heal after what they did to you? The question was direct, blunt, typical of him, but it carried a genuine concern that moved her. I don't know, she admitted honestly. But for the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm completely broken. She unconsciously touched the beaded necklace she wore, the only personal item she had managed to keep through all her tribulations. That night, Cole couldn't sleep. He lay awake, listening to Anna's steady breathing from the corner where she had insisted on sleeping on the floor, despite his protests that she'd take the bed. There was something about her presence that had awakened feelings he had buried deep after the war. After his wife and child died of fever while he was fighting in Virginia, at dawn Cole made a decision he knew would change everything. He dressed, silently took his rifle, and left the cabin to track in the fresh snow. He knew Henley and his gang weren't far. Men like them always returned to the scene of their crimes, like wolves returning to mark their territory. When Anna woke and found a note on the table, her heart sank. I've gone to settle this. Stay in the cabin. If I don't return in 3 days, take the horse and go to town. Ask for Sheriff Thompson and tell him Cole sent a friend. For hours, Anna paced the cabin like a caged animal, looking out the window towards the path that disappeared among the pines. Cole had done more than save her life. He had given her back the hope that good men existed in the world. The thought of losing him to the very demons who had tried to destroy her was unbearable. At midday, she made her own decision. Cole had made a mistake in underestimating her determination. She had survived weeks in hostile territory before he found her, and she was not the helpless maiden he seemed to believe she was. She put on Cole's boots, which were too big for her, took the hunting knife he kept razor sharp, and went after him, following his tracks in the snow. She wasn't going to allow the first man who had shown true kindness to her to face his demons alone. After all, they were her demons too. It was time to confront them once and for all. Cole found Henley's camp just before nightfall, hidden in a natural hollow between 2 rocky hills that offered protection from the wind, but also limited escape routes. 3 men sat around a campfire, so confident in their isolation that they hadn't even posted a lookout. Their arrogance would be their downfall. From his elevated position among the pines, Cole watched for an hour, memorizing every movement, every habit. Henley, with his distinctive horseshoe-shaped scar, dominated the conversation with a gruff voice that reached Cole's hiding spot clearly. The Foot, the man with the bear-tooth necklace, constantly held a bottle in his hand. Winters, the one with the green eyes, obsessively cleaned his weapons. Asterisk, we should have sold that Indian before she got so troublesome. Henley growled, spitting into the fire where his saliva hissed and evaporated. Kachi women can fetch. Good money in Mexico, especially the young ones. She was too much of a fight, Befoot retorted, taking another drink. Bit me so hard I still got the mark. Showed his arm where tooth marks were indeed visible. Besides, it was fun to watch her beg us when we left her in the snow. Cole felt fury rise in his chest like boiling water. Men in war. Men who were soldiers doing their duty like him. But this was different. These weren't soldiers. They were predators who hunted the innocent for pleasure. Asterisk Winters suddenly looked up, his survival instincts alerting him to a strange presence. Someone's watching us, he murmured, reaching for his pistol. The other two men immediately tensed, their casual conversations forgotten. It's time, Cole thought, and emerged from his hiding place, his rifle pointed directly at Henley's heart. Gentlemen, he said in a dangerously quiet voice, I believe we have some business to discuss. The three men froze, but Cole could see their minds working, calculating distances and opportunities. Henley was the first to speak, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Well, if it isn't the famous Jeremiah Cole. Heard you retired from the business. I retired from a lot of things, Cole replied, keeping the rifle firmly aimed. But apparently you three decided to bring me back to work. His finger rested lightly on the trigger, and everyone in the camp knew that one wrong move would be their last. Work. Befoot chuckled nervously. Didn't know caring for dirty Indians was lucrative work these days, the comment was. A mistake. Cole saw Winters take advantage of the distraction to move his hand towards his weapon. Cole's shot echoed like thunder among the hills. Winters fell backward, his chest ripped open by the impact of the rifle bullet. Before the other two could fully react, Cole had reloaded with the speed of a professional. That was for her, Cole said coldly, now aiming at Henley. The next two are for me. Befoot tried to run, but a second bullet brought him down before he could take 3 steps. His bare-toothed necklace scattered in the snow, each white tooth contrasting dramatically with the blood that spread like red ink. Asterisk Henley slowly raised his hands. His previous bravado completely evaporated. Wait, Cole, we can make a deal. Have money hidden. A lot of money. We can share it. There's no deal for men like you, Cole replied. But before he could pull the trigger, he heard approaching footsteps in the snow behind him. He turned partially, keeping the rifle, aimed at Henley, and saw Anna emerging from among the trees with the hunting knife in her hand. I told you to stay in the cabin, Cole said, though he couldn't help but feel a strange mixture of pride and concern seeing her there, fierce and determined despite the danger. And I decided not to listen to you, she retorted her, eyes fixed on Henley with an intensity that made the man instinctively recoil. This is my business too, Jeremiah Cole, and I want him to look me in the eye before he dies. Asterisk Henley fell to his knees in the bloody snow, his eyes desperately alternating between Cole's rifle and the knife in Anna's hands. The night wind had ceased, leaving a silence so deep that the sound of his ragged breathing seemed deafening in the hollow. Please, Henley whispered, all pretense of toughness gone. We were just playing with her. We didn't really hurt her. It was just fun. His words sounded hollow, even to himself, pathetic pleas from a man finally facing the consequences of his actions. Anna approached slowly, each step deliberate and measured. When she was close enough for him to see her eyes clearly, she stopped. Fun? She repeated softly. That's what you called leaving me to die in the snow like an animal? That's fun to you? Cole watched the scene with his heart in his throat. He knew Anna had every right in the world to take revenge. But he also knew that killing in cold blood would change something fundamental in her, something he had come to value deeply in the days they had spent together. Do it if that's what you need, Cole said quietly. But remember that, when you cross that line, there's no turning back. I crossed that line many years ago, and part of me stayed on the other side forever. Anna raised the knife. But when he opened them, Anna had lowered the weapon. No, she said, her voice trembling not from fear, but from a newfound strength. I won't let you turn me into what you are. You've already taken enough from me. She turned to Cole, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Is there a sheriff in this territory? Someone who dispenses real justice?" Cole nodded slowly, a proud smile slightly curving the corners of his mouth. "Sheriff Thompson, in Willow Creek. He's a good man. A little slow, but honest." He kept the rifle aimed at Henley as he spoke. "There are bounty posters for these three. $3,000 in total, and that's what we'll do," Anna decided firmly. "Turn him over to the law. Let a judge decide his fate, not us." She approached Cole and placed her hand on the barrel of his rifle, gently pushing it down. "There's been enough death here tonight." As they tied Henley and prepared the other two bodies for transport, Cole couldn't stop looking at Anna with new admiration. She had shown a kind of strength he had lost long ago. The strength to choose mercy over vengeance, justice over personal satisfaction. The 3-day journey to Willow Creek was silent but not uncomfortable. Henley, bound and defeated, caused no trouble. During the nights, as they camped under the stars, Cole and Anna spoke about the future with a freedom neither had felt before. Cole admitted he had been considering going back to teaching, perhaps in one of the new towns emerging as the territory became civilized. Anna spoke of her dream of becoming an interpreter and mediator between her people and the white settlers, helping to build bridges instead of walls. "Someone has to help both sides see that we are more alike than different," she said one night as the fire crackled between them. When they finally arrived in Willow Creek, Sheriff Thompson greeted them with surprise and gratitude. The reward for the 3 men was considerable. And when Cole suggested that Anna keep all the money, she insisted on splitting it equally. "We're partners in this," she simply said. That night, at the town's only hotel, Cole and Anna sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and purple. The sign that had marked Anna's trash had been burned days ago, its ashes scattered by the winter wind. "Do you know what's strangest about all this?" Anna asked, as she watched families walk down the main street. "For years, people told me I was worthless, first on the reservation, then at the mission, finally those men. But you saved me without even knowing me." Cole took her hand gently, feeling the calluses that had developed during her ordeal, but also the softness that remained underneath. "I didn't save you because you were worth something to me," he said honestly. "I saved you because all human life has inherent value. That's something I forgot for a long time until I found you in that snow." Anna smiled, and for the first time since Cole had known her, it was a smile completely free of pain. "Then we saved each other," she observed. "You saved me from the cold, and I saved you from yourself." As the first stars appeared in the night sky, neither spoke of tomorrow. They didn't need to. They had found something more valuable than gold in those snowy mountains. They had found proof that humanity could triumph over cruelty, that compassion could flourish even in the most hardened hearts, that sometimes 2 lost souls could find their way home simply by caring for each other. The sign had lied. She wasn't trash. It wasn't just a heartless gunfighter. They were imperfect, but precious human beings, and in a world that often felt hopeless. They had created something beautiful, friendship forged in adversity, and adversity tempered in the mutual understanding that everyone deserves a second chance at goodness. In the distance, a train whistled its arrival at the station, bringing new dreams and new possibilities to the frontier. For Jeremiah, Cole, and Anna, the sound was not the end of their story, but the beginning of a new one, written not in signs of hate but in acts of unconditional love for the shared humanity that bound them. 3 weeks after delivering Henley to the authorities, Cole and Anna had established a comfortable routine in Willow Creek. He had rented a small house on the outskirts of town, close enough to civilization, but with room for both of them to breathe. In the mornings, Cole helped the local blacksmith while exploring the possibility of opening a school. And Anna worked with the doctor's wife, learning Western medicine to complement her people's traditional knowledge. News of their arrival had spread like wildfire across the territory. The story of the gunfighter who had saved an Apache woman, and together had brought justice to the region's most wanted criminals, had become legend, growing and embellishing with each retelling. Some admired their bravery. Others whispered about the impropriety of a white man and an Indian woman living under the same roof, however platonic. One rainy April morning, as Cole repaired a fence behind the house, an unexpected visitor arrived. Sheriff Thompson rode up to the gate with a grave expression, accompanied by an older man dressed in elegant clothes that sharply contrasted with the rustic frontier setting. "Cole," the sheriff called, dismounting, "I need to speak with you. This is Judge Whitman. He's from the territorial capital." The older man studied Cole with piercing eyes, as if he were evaluating not just his appearance, but his very soul. Anna came out of the house, hearing the voices, wiping her hands on an apron she had bought at the general store. Her English had improved remarkably in recent weeks, but the musical accent of her native tongue could still be detected when she spoke. "Is something wrong?" she asked, addressing Thompson, who had always been kind to her. Judge Whitman cleared his throat ceremoniously. "Miss Anna, is it? I've come from the capital because Marcus Henley's case has attracted considerable attention. Your testimony and Mr. Cole's will be crucial for the trial, which will take place next week." Cole frowned, dropping the hammer he had been using. "I thought it was a closed case. We caught him red-handed. Literally. 2 of his companions are dead, and he confessed in front of half a dozen witnesses in Willow Creek." "That's correct," the judge confirmed, but his expression remained serious. "However, Henley has secured a lawyer from Chicago, a man named Cornelius Blackwood, a specialist in difficult cases. He's arguing that you two acted as vigilantes, that the killings of Befoot and Winters were unjustified, that the young lady's testimony is inadmissible due to certain circumstances." Anna felt the ground shift under her feet. "Circumstances?" she asked, though she feared knowing the answer. She had lived long enough in the white man's world to know that her race and gender made her an easy target for unscrupulous lawyers. Whitman looked uncomfortable. "Blackwood alleges that as an Indian woman, without formal education, without known family to corroborate her story, and as a victim of trauma, her testimony cannot be considered reliable under territorial law." Cole felt the familiar fury rise in his chest. "That's a lie, and we all know it." His voice had taken on the dangerous tone that Anna had learned to recognize. "She's smarter and more honest than half the men I know personally." "I agree with you, Cole," the judge replied, raising his hands peacefully, "but I must operate within the confines of the law, and Blackwood knows every technicality in the books. If you are going to testify, you need to be prepared for a brutal cross-examination." In the days that followed, Cole and Anna prepared intensely for the trial. Judge Whitman sent them law books to study, and Cole helped Anna practice her testimony, again and again, making sure she could answer any question with clarity and confidence. But the nights were the hardest. Anna began to have nightmares again, reliving not only her ordeal with Henley and his gang, but also the years at the mission where she was constantly told she wasn't good enough, civilized enough, valuable enough to be treated as a whole human. Being, "What if he's right?" she asked one night, as she and Cole sat on the porch looking at the stars. "What if I'm really not a reliable witness? What if my word really isn't worth anything against that of an educated white man?" Cole turned to look at her directly, taking her hands in his. "Anna, listen to me very carefully. Your word is worth as much as anyone's in this territory. Maybe more, because you've survived things that would have broken supposedly stronger men. Don't let unjust laws convince you that you are less than you are." She squeezed his hands, finding strength in his unwavering conviction. "Sometimes I wonder what the world would be like if more men thought like you," she murmured. Cole smiled sadly, knowing that the world they both imagined was still far off, but determined to fight for it anyway. The day of the trial, Willow Creek seemed to have tripled its population. People from all over the territory had arrived too. Witness what newspapers had dubbed the trial of the century, a legendary gunfighter and an Apache woman facing the country's best criminal lawyer in a battle that would determine not only Marcus Henley's fate, but also set precedents on justice on the frontier. The courtroom normally used for minor disputes over livestock and property lines had been transformed for the occasion. Additional benches had been brought from the church, and still people crowded standing against the walls. Cole noticed that the audience was clearly divided. Locals who knew the story firsthand sat near the front, showing silent support, while newcomers, many clearly reporters and curious onlookers, occupied the back seats with expressions of morbid expectation. Cornelius Blackwood was exactly what Cole had expected. A impeccably dressed, middle-aged man with silver hair combed back and a smile that didn't reach his calculating eyes. He carried a fine leather briefcase and moved around the room with the confidence of someone accustomed to winning impossible cases through technicalities and legal manipulation. Anna, for her part, had carefully chosen her outfit for the day. She wore a simple but elegant navy blue dress that the doctor's wife had lent her, with her hair pulled back in a bun that exposed the proud line of her neck. Cole had insisted she didn't need to disguise herself to be respected, but she had decided that eliminating any visual distractions would help her concentrate on what was important, telling the truth. The territorial prosecutor, a young man named Samuel Morrison, seemed nervous as he organized his papers. It was his first high-profile case, and everyone in the room could feel that he was being outmatched by Blackwood's experience. Cole wondered if they had deliberately sent a rookie to handle the case. "All rise," announced the bailiff as Judge Whitman entered in his black robes. The room filled with the rustle of fabric and the creak of wood as over 100 people simultaneously stood. The proceedings began routinely with the reading of charges against Henley: kidnapping, attempted murder, and several other minor offenses. Henley, now clean and shaven, dressed in new clothes provided by his lawyer, looked like a completely different person from the desperate man they had captured on the mountain. Morrison presented his case first, narrating the events directly and without embellishment. When it was time to call his first witness, Cole stood up and walked to the stand, feeling the weight of all eyes in the room. His testimony was clear and concise, describing the discovery of Anna, her condition when he found her, and the subsequent confrontation with the criminals. But when Blackwood stood up for the cross-examination, the atmosphere in the room tangibly changed. "Mr. Cole," began in a silky voice, "is it true that you have a considerable history of violence, don't you? How many men have you killed in your career as a gunfighter?" Morrison immediately rose. "Objection, Your Honor, irrelevant to the current case." But Blackwood smiled coldly. "Your Honor, the witness's credibility is absolutely relevant, especially when that witness admits to having executed 2 men without prior trial." Judge Whitman sighed. "Permitted, the witness will answer." Cole looked directly at Blackwood without blinking. "I've killed men when it was necessary to protect innocent lives, exactly as I did that night on the mountain." For the next 30 minutes, Blackwood tried to paint Cole as a bloodthirsty vigilante who had taken the law into his own hands. But Cole had lived too much and seen too much to be intimidated by a city lawyer, no matter how skilled. When it was finally Anna's turn, the room fell into absolute silence. She walked to the stand with her head held high. She took the oath in a clear voice and began to tell her story. Her English, though still marked by her native accent, was perfect in its precision and devastating in its simplicity. She described her time at the mission, the attack by the 3 men, her capture and torture, and finally the moment when they left her to die in the snow with that cruel sign. She didn't cry, didn't beg for sympathy. She simply recounted with a dignity that filled the room with a reverent silence. When Blackwood stood up to cross-examine her, Cole felt his muscles tense involuntarily. "Miss Barden Madu, have a surname? A full Christian name that the courts can officially recognize?" Anna looked him directly in the eyes. "My name is Anna. In my language, it means eternal flower. It is the only name I need, and it is the only name I recognize."